Hello, and welcome to the Historia Project's virtual summer camp, day 3. We're so glad that you're able to make it today for another lesson. And for today's talk, we're going to be actually talking about a famous individual in the history of science. And that person is named Elizabeth Blackwell. Um, so yeah, let's really talk about and get to know who really Elizabeth Blackwell was. There's three quick facts that kind of really show who she is in a very concise way. One thing was that she was a British American physician. Second information is that she was actually the first woman to earn a medical degree in the United States. And lastly, one important thing about her is that she promoted women's rights, especially in the field of medicine. So back in the day, because there was disparities between male and females within a lot of sectors in life, such as occupation, not many people, specifically females, were very represented or seen in the medical field. And so Elizabeth Blackwell kind of paved the road for future female physicians in the United States, at least, and around the world. So one quote that she kind of mentioned that she's famous for is that she said that it's not easy to be a pioneer, but oh, is it fascinating? And that kind of really sums up the work that she did because she really was a pioneer for female physicians at the time. And what's really interesting about that, what makes it fascinating, I guess, is that she's able to show women who might have had interest in working as a doctor or maybe in the medical field, you show them that they have an opportunity now to be heard or seen. So some information about her early life. She was actually born in Bristol, England, in February 3rd, 1821. Her father, Samuel Blackwell, was actually a sugar refiner, and her mother, Hannah Lane Blackwell, um, had additional children. She had older sisters named Anna and Marion, and also 6 younger siblings. So it was a pretty big family. And she also lived with 4 unmarried aunts as well. Now, more about her early life. In 1832, she moved to New York after living in England due to the loss of a sugar refinery in a fire. And afterwards, her father became involved in an abolitionist movement. And that's kind of also the reason why the environment that Elizabeth grew up in kind of shaped her whole ideal as a pioneer for women in the medical field. And there was a constant focus of human rights issues such as slavery and women's rights that was involved in Elizabeth's upbringing. Her father was also believed that all people should have opportunity to grow and develop, and so he assigned a governess and private tutors for Elizabeth's education, which is something that you don't really get to see at that time period because a lot of the children would either be working in industries or in the workforce. And even the children who were educated were mostly men. So we really see this very stark contrast compared to the typical family at that time. Now, there was some change, some turmoil in Elizabeth's life because after moving to Cincinnati, their father died in 1838, and her sister, her 2 older sisters, and herself, as a result, started the Cincinnati English and French Academy for the young ladies. And this was really to help provide financially for the family. And in 1838, Elizabeth converted to Episcopalianism, and she met William Henry Channing in 1839, and also started to believe in a different religion called Unitarian Universalism and Transcendentalism, which was also at the same time, and which was a pretty uprising and very popularizing religion back at the in the 1830s and 40s and around that time. And those kind of religions were inciting hatred from the Cincinnati community and essentially caused the eventual close of the academy.
Okay, so after this closing of the academy, Blackwell pretty much taught privately. In 1844, she was able to find a teaching job in Henderson, Kentucky. So after these first-hand encounters with slavery, she resigned after the first term and returned to Cincinnati. After that, though, she found another job teaching music at an academy in Asheville, North Carolina. There she had met Reverend John Dickinson, a physician turned clergyman. He supported Blackwell and let her use the medical books in his library to study for medical school. After the school closed down, Blackwell moved in with Reverend Dixon's brother, Samuel Henry Dixon, a physician from Charleston. There she taught at a boarding school, stayed until 1847, and at that point in time, she left to go to Philadelphia and New York to study medicine. So in Philadelphia, she stayed with Dr. William Elder and she studied anatomy under Dr. Jonathan Allen. So in this attempt, she attempted to enroll in medical schools, but she was rejected several times for being a woman and perceived as a less intellectual or competition that could take customers. And in this time, it was really common for women to be looked down upon. So in this, she received recommendations to go to Paris and pretend to be a man. So with this, she got accepted into Geneva Medical College in Geneva, New York in 1847. The dean and the faculty were unable to decide and allowed the all-male class to vote. So these students disregarded her application and unanimously voted to accept her. So during the summer, she returned to Philadelphia and worked at the Blockley Almshouse for experience. She was really frightened by the syphilitic ward and wrote her graduating thesis on typhus. So she graduated on January 23, 1849, and she became the first woman to earn a medical degree in the US. So in 1849, she traveled to Europe to continue her medical studies. She was rejected by many hospitals for being a woman, but she enrolled in La Maternette, a hospital in France, as a student midwife instead of a physician. There, she had met resident physician Hippolyte Blot, who served as her mentor. So after this, Blackwell became incredibly proficient in obstetrics, a field relating to childbirth. In fact, Paul Dubois, the best obstetrician at that time, stated that she would be the best obstetrician in the United States regardless of her gender. In 1849, while treating an infant, she accidentally contaminated her left eye, requiring surgery to remove it, ultimately destroying her future as a surgeon. In 1850, she enrolled at St. Bartholomew's Hospital in London. In 1851, following that, she returned to New York City, hoping to serve as a medical professional in the United States. In 1850, okay.
In 1852, Blackwell published a book about the development of girls titled The Laws of Life, with special reference to the physical education of girls, which is mainly really just focused on teaching people how to raise their female children. Then, in 1853, she established a dispensary and began to mentor Marie Zakrzewska, a Polish woman who was pursuing a medical degree. So you can really see how her own experience influenced her future decisions, because she wanted to support other women who also wanted to become physicians like her. Then in 1857, the dispensary that she founded expanded into the New York Infirmary for Indigent Women and Children. During the American Civil War, Elizabeth and her sister Emily, who was a younger sister who had also obtained a medical degree, served as nurses for the Union Army. So, as stated previously, because of their relatively liberal upbringing with ideas that focused on human rights, they sympathized with the North and wanted to get rid of slavery. So they faced discrimination from the U.S. Sanitary Commission, which was mainly made up of men. And in response, they organized with the Women's Central Relief Association, although that organization was ultimately absorbed by the U.S. Sanitary Commission. Later, Elizabeth traveled to Britain to establish infirmary projects, and she became the first woman to have her name entered on the General Medical Council's medical register in 1859. While she was in Britain, she mentored another woman physician called Elizabeth Garrett Anderson. And after that, she returned back to the United States, where she established a medical college for women in 1868 that required a 4-year training period that focused on clinical experience, which was a lot more stringent than several of the other requirements to become a physician at the time. In 1869, Elizabeth returned to Britain to promote medical education for women. And in 1874, she established the London School of Medicine for women with Sophia Jex-Blake, which was an alumni of the New York Infirmary and a student of Elizabeth. And eventually, she resigned in 1877 and chose to focus more on reform movements. So while she was in Britain, and she traveled all throughout Europe and supported lots of activist movements. So, for example, she founded the National Health Society in 1871. And from 1880 to 1895, she participated in many moral, sexual purity, and hygiene reform movements. So she focused a lot on Christian ideals and Christian morality, especially in relating to medicine and science, which is not very common, because in the modern day, sometimes you see science and religion often conflicting. However, at that time, she was really using Christianity and those morals to promote science and promote ethics and rigor. Then in 1878, she wrote a book titled Counsel to Parents on the Moral Education of Their Children that argued against prostitution and the use of contraceptives. Right. And thank you guys so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed, and please please watch out for our future summer camp videos.
Bye.